Hello, everybody. It's me, Kenneth, here on Global Renaissance, our new YouTube channel. And with me, I have Eliza Mada Dalian. She is the author of In Search of the Miraculous, which is a great book about healing. You know, I mean, there are many themes in this book, but I would summarize it as it being a book about healing. Eliza Mada is a teacher. She is a healer, and she currently lives in Canada. So, Mada, welcome.
Thank you, Kenneth. Happy to be on your show.
Mada, maybe let's just start with you. And it's a very long story that you've been through, and I certainly appreciate that you've been through a lot in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I think it takes one to know one, and the great thing about being a teacher who's been through a lot of, I would say, suffering is that you have a tremendous ability to empathize. Now, do you want to just tell us a little bit about your life before you started teaching, I guess?
Well, you mentioned the word suffering, and there's two ways to look at suffering. One way to look at suffering is with the attitude which I call a wounded ego, which says I'm a victim and nobody loves me and poor me and look at me, I'm suffering. Another way to look at suffering is to look with an attitude, these things are happening to me, and why are they happening? What are my lessons in whatever is happening? So those attitudes are very, very fundamental in how much we can progress and evolve on our journey. With the second type of attitude, we can move heaps and very fast, and we can learn a lot. Fortunately, my attitude has always been to look at suffering as, what are my lessons? Why am I in this situation? What can I learn? And as a result, you mentioned the word empathy. Empathy arises as a result of suffering in a way, because once you've gone through certain things, you understand other people's suffering. And also you understand how you can help them. In my personal life, I can say that I have, because life is not only suffering, there's always also very many blessings in life as well. And my focus has always been on the blessings that I've received. And the blessings have been very profound, in a way that I started my life with a blessing in a gift that I received through my grandparents, and an awareness that life actually is here to teach me about myself, for me to learn who I am. And of course, that happened through witnessing my grandfather's death at an early age of 5, and asking the question, who am I? So that's a tremendous gift for a child to have, to start asking those questions early on in life.
Sorry, why that's a bit of a jump for me. Why? How did witnessing your grandfather's dying translate to having this question, who am I?
The awareness of my own mortality. And once I realized that I will be dying as well, and the world will continue just as it's continuing after his death, it brought me, just suddenly the question arose, then who am I? What am I doing here? Where do I come from? What's my purpose here? So we're very, when we have that contrast in life, where there's a dramatic, life and death situation, this is where we learn the most. And I remember Osho saying that Buddha used to send his disciples to watch people die and being brought to the burning ghats. He would send them for 3 months to just watch people dying. And he himself, whenever he would hear as a young child somebody's dying, he would rush to the side of the person who is dying to learn. And I've learned tremendously with just watching somebody's death process. And I've witnessed several people as well on their death, in their death process. With my grandfather, for example, he struggled. He wasn't accepting it, and he was basically very much identified with the pain and just wanted to end it all. So I don't think he really learned what he needed to learn through his process of death.
Okay, so we were talking about this question, who am I? So what is your answer?
The answer about the who am I question? Well, that's a very big question and the most important. And of course, in itself, the question creates a lot of I hesitate to call the word suffering, but it does create a lot of suffering in a sense, because the cause of our suffering is because we don't know who we are. And that's why we suffer. And then to find who I am is another process of an uphill battle, because you're working with all the belief systems that you think you are. And therefore it becomes sometimes maddening. And I remember when I was looking at that question again as an adult, and of course with oops, you disappeared. Okay, and came back now again. Okay, as an adult, I realized that the maddening part about the question is the mind itself, because you're trying to find the answer with the mind, and the mind itself is the problem. And therefore it becomes confusing, it becomes hard, the whole process becomes so, in a way, a feeling like I'm going mad, because I'm trying to transcend the mind, move out of the mind, and yet I'm using the mind and I cannot stop it. So that whole process becomes very, for any seeker, for any true seeker, becomes a very challenging situation. And so, of course, also the process of that is to look at the ego. What is the mind? Is the ego. So looking at the ego and looking at the darkness that is within the mind, within the history, within the story.
Yeah, I think I've recently been influenced by Muji. You know who Muji is?
Yes.
And I think Muji would say, the goal of it is not to find the answer, but to lose the question.
Well, the question drops on its own when you find the answer. But if you don't look for the answer, you'll never find the answer. This is the catch-22.
Indeed.
And the mind is very clever. So somebody says, based on their experience, a teacher says something, and people get a hold on the words, and they say, oh, well, okay, I don't need to do this. And it becomes, for a follower, for a student, for a seeker, it becomes very difficult. Because if you're really sincere, you wouldn't listen to anything. You will listen, you will hear, but you will say, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to look, I'm going to focus on my meditation, I'm going to focus inwards, because no matter what the teacher says, it's still intellectual for me. It's an intellectual understanding.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to get caught on the intellectual understanding and to think that now I know.
What is the ego?
The ego is everything that you're not.
This interview is not going to satisfy people who are looking for answers, is it?
Well, maybe so.
We have this little dance, so it's like, who are we again? Can you remind me?
Well, everything you think you are is what I could say. Very, very, everything you think you are is part of your ego.
Right. Every intellectual idea that you have about yourself is of the ego, huh?
That's right. That's right. Because knowing yourself, it's not thinking, it's knowing. It's a different quality. There's a difference between knowing and thinking.
So what is knowing?
Once you know who you are, you cannot describe it. The words drop away. You just know. It's a knowing.
Mm.
Once you meet someone who also knows, the two knowingnesses meet, and you know that the person knows. You can't say the words drop. There's nothing to say.
Right. Or you could just be going crazy.
I don't think you need to go crazy.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. Now, I actually really appreciated your book. I want to say again, I really highly recommend your book. I think it's really a gem of a read. I think it's very well written. You've clearly taken a lot of time to write it well. You know, I think in this day and age, a lot of books are kind of like rushed out.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciated the breadth of spiritual teachings, because I really appreciated the coverage of the chakra systems, which to me play a big part in my kind of spiritual understanding as well, in addition to what we're discussing here, which is, you know, in a sense, the non-dual aspect of the seeking, you know, the ultimate, who am I, and all that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the chakra system, just, you know, for someone who doesn't know what chakra is?
Well, the chakras are the energy points in our body, and we need to look at our body as a prism, which converts the baser metal alchemically into gold, if we take the terminology of alchemy. And what is the gold? The gold is the consciousness. So each chakra has a role, and there's 7 major chakras. There's many other energy points in the body, and acupuncture knows that well. Mm-hmm. But in the Eastern tradition, they've sort of summed it up into 7 main ones. Now they say 8 and 13, etc. But it doesn't, in the body itself, there's 7 major ones. And each chakra has a quality of life that it represents, a quality of ego and consciousness that it represents. And it's really important. It doesn't matter. We don't really need to know, it's good to have an idea overall about chakras, but not to get hang up on the chakras in a way. Mm-hmm. But to know that every chakra represents a certain aspect of who we are. And it's really important also to understand that the first lower chakras are the first, second, third are the chakras that associated with more the life that we know it on the physical plane. Mm-hmm. It's very down to earth. It's very material. It's very much associated with our instinct, the sexuality, the survival, the power center, which in my experience with 99% of people, their power center is compromised from very childhood. That power center is shut for children because they're made to follow, because the fear is basically what undermines each chakra. And that's why many people have difficulty rising in consciousness and expanding and growing consciousness, because the chakras are very much compromised and damaged. And then, of course, that's why there's so much strive or so much longing for love and acceptance. And in the base of each person, there is that deep longing for love and acceptance, because as children, we have not been fully accepted as we are. We have both within the family, within the school, within the society, what we've been actually taught is to compete, to become like others. and never been appreciated for who we are, for what we bring, and never taught that each one of us has our own unique gifts that is unparalleled. So because of that, all these lower chakras have been very, very strongly undermined. And therefore, the fourth chakra, which is connected with love, with sharing, with compassion, is not really happening. Why? How can it happen? Because the energy is not moving up to the fourth chakra. And there's a lot of starvation in the fourth chakra, the heart chakra. Because of that, because the lower chakras haven't really been transformed and become healthy. And the heart chakra is in between the material reality and the spiritual reality. And this is the place where we, for the first time, experience something that transcends the mind. Nobody can explain what is love. Nobody can explain what is acceptance and what is that longing. But people know it, that there is something missing. And we talk a lot in our society about love. Why do we do that? Is because somewhere collectively there is an awareness that it's missing. Love is what the whole universe is. It's the glue within the universe that connects everything. And so we feel uprooted. We feel we don't belong. We feel I'm not at home in my own skin. I'm not at home on this planet. Because all the judgments and all the criticism and all the rejection of who I am, then I learn to start rejecting myself and judging myself. And so therefore, the whole suffering is created because of that.
Do you think Earth collectively is stuck at the third, trying to go up to the fourth?
The Earth collectively is actually stuck. It's not even stuck at the third. It's collectively suffering in the third. It's damaged in the third. It's damaged in the second. It's damaged in the first. Well, if you look at religious conditionings, they all go against sexuality. They all go against the body. And how can you actually enjoy yourself if you deny your body? Because that's your home, you're living in it. So first of all, you need to start loving your own body, accepting your body, accepting yourself, and recognizing that I do have the power to live my life according to my own understanding, to my own will, and I will not allow anyone to interfere with my life. And how many people reach to that point of understanding? Most people think I'm dependent on somebody else's approval. And I don't want to be judged and criticized and rejected. So therefore, they stay stuck in that wounded ego state. And that's why it becomes, the suffering adds on top of, there's layers and layers and layers. Every moment of unlived life adds to suffering.
Maybe it's relevant. Do you think there's an organized intelligence behind this distortion of so to speak, the first three chakras on Earth?
Just like if you look at human nature, if you understand human nature, you will understand also what you call organized intelligence. It's actually the struggle between consciousness and unconsciousness, the struggle between fear and freedom. And the intelligence is that you need to see the both polarities in order to transcend the duality. That's intelligence. And in a way, if you look in a bigger picture, nothing wrong with what is, because what is helping those two individuals to transcend the duality. And we need to see the duality, otherwise we wouldn't know. If you were living on a beautiful island and there was not a single person around you, you wouldn't really learn these kind of things. You wouldn't really understand your mind. You wouldn't have any mirrors to reflect you back parts of yourself that you need to see.
So would you say duality is then some kind of cosmic evolutionary program?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without it, it's impossible to to see that actually there is a 0 point where nothing happens. It's like a pendulum. It moves from, one side to the other side, but it passes very quickly through that 0 point. But it's so quick that we don't see it. And the mind is like that, like a pendulum. Once we start watching the mind, the swing of the pendulum becomes less and less and less till we start settling in that point of nothingness.
Which is our base nature.
That's right.
So why did we choose to experience this swinging in the first place?
I think in the beginning, it's not a choice. You don't have a choice. You're just thrown into it. It's like the Sufi people say, until when the fish is thrown out of the ocean is when the fish realizes it lived in the ocean. So we are like a fish thrown out of the ocean, of that cosmic ocean of oneness, and manifested into single bodies. And as we're thrown out of the ocean, we realize the separation. And then we understand that's why it's like the journey is going back to remember where we started.
But I guess what I'm saying, and please correct me if any of my assumptions are different from yours, is that we must have thrown ourselves out of the ocean because all is one.
You're still speaking from the point of the ego. Ego thinks I've thrown myself out of the ocean.
So who threw us out of the ocean?
If you are, just imagine you're a log and you've been thrown on the ocean, and the waves carry you to the beach. So what's carrying you to the beach? You're the log. Your ego is like the log. So you think I am the log, but there's that force that actually moves you. You're not as yourself. You cannot get to the beach without those waves.
Mm-hmm.
So those waves, where are they coming from? They're part of the ocean. Nobody knows. This is the part where the ego has to understand that there is a force outside of me, the small ego that I think I am.
Mm-hmm.
That force is much more powerful than my little will.
Okay, I think I understand. Well, I'm saying the I here now is not the ego I. It's the greater I. The I that is all one.
The I that recognizes, that's right, the I that recognizes thy will be done. It's not my will. Ultimately, it's thy will.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to say here is obviously this question, which is asked a lot in circles where I'm from A Course in Miracles. And the question is, how did this impossible set of circumstances happen, knowing that we are the one infinite creator or the one infinite mind?
You see, what you're trying to do here, Kenneth, is you're trying to understand it with your mind.
Right.
And as I said, your mind is the problem. You can only know the answer from within. And once you know the answer from within, you know that ultimately, whatever we're doing, somewhere there's a greater force that is doing through us.
And do you think that we are that greater force?
Of course we are.
Right.
We are the greater force, but this is the point where the ego absolutely dissolves, because then you realize my will is utilitarian. As long as I'm in the body, I can work with my will, but ultimately there's a greater will that I have to surrender to. The I, the ego, has to surrender to. And in that surrender, then you become a true vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind cannot surrender. This is another thing to understand. Only your intelligence, your understanding of the ego, once you start seeing the mind, then and recognizing your will versus the will of the absolute, you realize that this is the point where I have to surrender, I have to let go. And every single person has those experiences sometime or other in their life.
Mm-hmm.
You do something, you do something, you go after something, you have a goal in your mind, and you do whatever you can. And either you feel existence is supporting it, or sometimes you feel you're just bumping against a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point you go, okay, I've done the best I can, now I let go, I surrender. And in that moment, you're acting from intelligence. You understand, I'm letting go of the ego, I'm letting go of the struggle, and I'm letting the universe, the greater whole, take me.
And I know you've written about that. Is that, would you say there are steps leading up to surrender, or is surrender just a single step?
Well, surrender is instantaneous, but what leads up to that instantaneous moment of surrender is accumulation of struggle. Once you struggle enough, like you say, the cup is full, then the cup is full. There's no more room to put anything. So in that moment, once you continue pouring tea in a cup, which is full, it starts overflowing. So in that overflowing state, there's the surrender. Now it flows back down, just flows back into the universe. And this is something that can be achieved through meditation, but not through the mind.
Right. Yeah. And I also appreciated that a lot. Tell us about meditation. And I know you are a fan of active meditation.
Yes.
What I mean, there are many types of meditation. Tell us a little bit about what meditation means for you.
Well, first of all, meditation is simply a process of witnessing. And in its pure sense, what meditation is witnessing. But there's many techniques, meditation techniques, that can help to cultivate that witness within you. And the reason I love active meditations and Osho's active meditations is because they allow for energy to move. They allow for stresses in the body to be released. They very quickly bring you to that place of stillness and peace.
Mm-hmm.
Versus passive sitting meditations, which are very difficult, and people struggle through passive sitting meditations. And another beautiful thing about the active meditations is that it has an element of passive sitting within it. So it incorporates physical movement, it incorporates certain release of pent-up emotions in the case of the dynamic meditation, or in the case of the no yes meditation. Mm-hmm. So you release what's built up, what's repressed, and that opens the sky. It's like suddenly the clouds are dispersing, and you have a ray of the sun, and suddenly you start feeling that inner being where nothing moves, mm-hmm. and everything's at peace. And with that's the moment of true meditation that happens through that activity.
Would you say active meditation is more suited to the modern day man?
Absolutely, because our hectic lifestyle, yes. Especially for young people, they love active meditations.
Mm.
Almost like it's an exercise. It's good for the body. It's good for the soul. It's good for the mind. It's good for the emotions. So all of those things are getting worked with through active meditations. And Buddha, who is the one who brought in the vipassana, the silent sitting meditation, which was very profound and is still profound, and it can never lose its power. This century, Buddha, Osho, brought the element of activity into that, keeping the element of vipassana within the process of the hour of the meditation. So he sort of upgraded the meditation techniques from the Buddha, because in Buddha's time people were more at peace and they didn't have computers or airplanes or all that, cars, and the world is a lot different now than it was in Buddha's time.
Yeah, I agree, and I definitely see the advantage and the logic in that. Now, you've talked a little bit about Osho, and just to help along those people who don't know who Osho is, and they're like, "Who's Osho? Why did they keep talking about Osho?" Tell us how who Osho is, and I guess your relationship with Osho.
Well, I came across Osho when I was 24 years old, and once I read his first book, I was completely blown away, in a sense of the depth of understanding, the depth of understanding of human nature. And because personally I've never really believed in gurus, I used to think that I know everything, basically, and nobody can teach me anything, right? So I had this very healthy ego, you can say.
Sounds familiar.
Yes, I can see that. So, and the first book was, of course, that before I was introduced to Osho, was Uspensky's book In Search of Miraculous, which was about Gurdjieff teachings.
I familiar sounding title.
Yes. So the subtitles are different, though the book title is the same. And that completely opened a door for me, that I resonated. I felt like this man has a tremendous knowledge, a tremendous wisdom that I can go down to. And then it was Osho's book that came along. And by the way, Osho has a book also called In Search of the Miraculous. So my book is the third in the series of In Search of the Miraculous.
Miraculous books.
With different subtitles. And I subtitled it Healing into Consciousness, because to me it's the process of finding that miraculous that we are is a process of healing into consciousness.
What is the miracle for you?
For me, the miracle is that we actually are what we're searching for, and that is it's in a way it's a miracle that we don't see it. And it's the dumbest thing that we don't see it. It's the most laughable thing that we don't see it. And to find it, to find what we already are, to me, miracle is more like a big laughter. That's what I associate miracle with. It's a big laughter of finding something that I'm looking for, I'm breaking my head to find, and I'm already are it.
Are you familiar with A Course in Miracles at all?
You know, I have a few students who have been studying the Course of Miracles. Yes. I haven't personally done any exploration of it. So there's a lot of good insights in there. But my experience with people who've been studying Course of Miracles is they're missing the experiential aspect of it. So you're trying to understand the concept with the mind, and it doesn't go any further than that. And that's a good understanding. You need a certain understanding, because that's why you should be doing the work. At least you need some motivation and understanding. The real work begins, what Christian mystics call entering the dark night of the soul. Because that's how you're going to find yourself. You cannot find yourself by just reading or intellectually understanding a concept.
Yeah, I agree.
Teach you about your unconsciousness. It's your work to see what's in my unconsciousness. What do I need to transform?
Yeah, I would say that's well, I guess you can say that for many spiritual seekers, not just for students of A Course in Miracles, but obviously,
Absolutely.
ACIM students do tend to be quite intellectual and in their heads, so I can see where you're coming from.
Even with, I've been with Osho for many years, since 24 years old, and he, as you know, or I don't know if you do know, he's attracted millions of people. And when I was in his communities, there were thousands and thousands of people there, but only very few really understood that they had to do the work. Many people were just there because it was a beautiful environment, very, very vibrant environment, very lively environment, and you suddenly feel good about yourself. But still, it's the environment, what he calls a Buddha field. And it's very important because it has a certain impact. Nevertheless, if you move out of the Buddha field and you haven't done your work, you're still moving back to where you were before. Unless you do your work, and unless you do the transformation, the inner transformation work.
That's an interesting concept, and I've certainly experienced that myself in terms of this Buddha field, and I would relate it to the Sangha.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say to the spiritual seeker now who don't have a Sangha or don't have a Buddha field? Are they missing something?
The Buddha field is very important in a way that it creates the environment. It's like when you very well know the world is not support individuality. The world does not support your growth. On the contrary, the world wants to use you as a machine to do what it needs to do. Society uses people as machines because the society, the world cannot exist if we don't put our energy outward. And Buddha field is a field where you create an environment which supports individuality, which supports you going inwards and supports that of looking in. And I very clearly see the difference with when there is the Buddha field and inner work simultaneously happening together at the same time, people move heaps in their transformation. And at the moment, we just finished the week 5 of the 8-week online course that I'm doing. And there's about 40 people there. And the field that has been created, and we're not even physically together.
Yeah.
But it's a field that is created thanks to technology, thanks to blogging, thanks to what we're doing together right now. We're creating a field as we speak. So this is a new age that is tremendously powerful because technology makes it possible to create that Buddha field without really having that material location where you have to go gather.
Yeah. I think you've actually, absolutely hit the nail on the head there. And myself, I've been trying to create a community based on video conferencing and A Course in Miracles, and I can definitely see this concept with the Buddha field and the Sangha playing out. Yeah, it's very interesting. Now, that, I guess, leads us to the question of 2012 and what I would see as an acceleration of sorts in terms of spiritual teachers coming out and this and that. Do you want to comment on the changing times?
Well, we all know the times are changing because we see them. We're experiencing them changing.
Mm-hmm.
And my feeling, and we're almost toward the end of 2012.
Sure.
And a lot has been already happening. And the way I experience it, there needs to be still a big, everything that's happened in the New Age sort of arena up to this point has prepared a certain foundation. But now even that foundation needs to be destroyed and something new needs to be created.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it. Because still the foundation was based on education and trying to educate people to understand the importance of the spiritual work, the importance of finding yourself. But there's a lot of talk and a lot of good wishes and a lot of mental gymnastics that's happened through that work. And I could see that you actually also need to break that foundation and step to something new. And what is the new? The new is the experiential knowingness. So, okay, fine, I read, I did, I understand. Now I'm going to look inside to see what's in my darkness, what's in the shadow, what's in my unconsciousness. That's the work. That's if we are to move into the golden age of enlightenment, the only way would be to go through that dark night.
I hear you. I've been going through that thing in the last months and weeks. I'm still doing it.
For that, new techniques are required. Techniques are required to help people to move through that very fast. And this is why, you know, it's interesting. I've been talking about my technique and the self-help technique called DM for so long, and it's still not out yet. Some people are experiencing it. Of course, many people, thousands have experienced it already, but it's still not out in the public yet, but although I talk about it. And my sense is I've been working on it. It's almost ready. The book is almost ready. The technique is recorded already. It's there. And I've converted into the self-help version of it. And the DVDs to be created so people know how to use it. And on some level, I feel the urgency to put it out. Mm-hmm. And on another level, I feel it's step by step, that I can only do step by step because I like to create something, as you mentioned initially. I don't want to just put out something just to put out something. I want it to be absolutely complete in itself. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's almost like existence knows its timing. So it's my best. But existence knows its timing, and there's something that's going to happen that people are going to understand more and be able to use this technique more. Mm.
Now, I have some comments on that, but tell us what your method is.
Basically, it helps you to go into your unconscious, see what is repressed there, what beliefs are repressed, what emotions are repressed. The technique helps you to release those repressions out of your body. Mm-hmm. And to do that, your consciousness immediately comes in because it's already inside you. You don't have to create it. Mm-hmm. It allows for your consciousness to come to the forefront. As it comes to the forefront, your belief systems just crumble. They have no power anymore. And it takes you very quickly to that place of meditation that I spoke of that and seeing, experiencing your inner being, understanding, coming to that inner stillness and silence. So it does all those things all at the same time. And not only that, it also heals the body, because what creates illness in the body, what creates ailments in the body is all the repressed fears, all the repressed belief systems, beliefs, repressed emotions. They create those blockages in the energy, and of course they get repressed. Different things get repressed in different parts of the body, and then so those different parts of the body then give the symptoms of something's wrong here. Okay, whoops, you've got a cyst here, you've got cancer here, you have a knot in your stomach, or all those things. Body is just giving a symptom, a signal that this is where you need to look to transform yourself into consciousness. Mm. So it very much works with the body, it works with the emotions, with the mind, with the spirit, and it's a combination of all that needs to be worked all together, because we are not separate. We're all that combination of all those things.
Yeah. Now, I obviously, just hearing you say that, I mean, it's great. You know, I really sense the potentiality of this thing. But I guess a skeptic would say, you know, this is not new, and you know, something like Barbara Brennan's, you know, work it sounds incredibly similar to what you're trying to do.
It's absolutely new, because nobody has ever used out loud expression in combination with breath and a system. This technique is a system of first of all, you will learn how to identify those repressed thought forms in your body. Mm-hmm. The system is out loud expression, and breath. So you're working with breath, out loud expression through different parts of the body, and you go back and forth through different areas. Because when I worked with people one-on-one, I saw the whole dynamics and how quickly it's possible to transform consciousness. It was like if you asked the miracle, that was my miracle, to see how unconsciousness can be so quickly transformed.
Mm.
So that was a true miracle. And as I worked with people for years, since 1997 is when I developed this technique. That's a long time. And I've been working with it one-on-one to a point where many therapists wanted to learn to use it with their clients. But in order to work with somebody else's thought forms, you have to be absolutely conscious not to bring in your own thought forms into somebody else's energy field. Because if you're working with somebody's thought forms and there's a lot of darkness comes up, a lot of self-judgment, anger, fear, and if you haven't worked with your own judgments and conditionings, you're immediately going to judge the person. And I was very, very, very skeptical that I can actually train people. It's like, okay, give me enlightened people, I can train them. But to bring somebody who is still struggling in their own ego personality haven't found, I couldn't take the responsibility to do that. And then it's just like when we're in that space of, I understand I can't do this, so what can I do? Because I know it's powerful, I know people can use this. Mm-hmm. Existence gives you the answer. And the answer was create a self-healing version of this method. And I thought, I can try. And for several years, I experimented with people in my workshops and tried to guide them through the method so they can actually do it on their own. And I was amazed. That was another miracle for me. Amazed at the transformation. And then I started writing and creating the method. And that's been going on for the last 2-3 years. So it's almost ready. It's ripe. It's like any seed you put in the soil. It takes time for it to germinate and to grow before it flowers. And this method is like that. It's not like an accidental thing. It started germinating since 1997 when I started working with it. And interestingly enough, this year at UCLA, they did a research and they came up with a conclusion that out loud expression of fears can diminish your fears. So they're starting to catch on with this idea that out loud expression, and no healing method that exists now uses out loud expression the way this method does.
Well, EFT does some of that, doesn't it?
No, it still uses the mind. It's still not looking, it doesn't look at what's pressed in the body. It still uses the mind to shift a negative belief. It does not use the negative belief itself, because unless you release the negative belief itself, you're putting a sugar coating on a rotten cake. Because the foundation needs to change, you see.
Interesting. I'm open-minded, I give you hard questions, but I'm open-minded.
No, I can see that, and I appreciate that.
And I also wanted to say that, I think it's a question of discernment. How do people know? It's an age of information overload. Even for someone like me, encountering you, I had to look at your book and spend some time with you to let you into my trusted zone. You know what I mean? Because there's so many charlatans out there. There's so many people out there who are selling snake oil, So I think, like you say, it takes time.
Yeah.
And, people like to see results. It's always about results. So I'm sure people will, there are results from your method, and they're coming out to light.
And also there's a readiness, right? So the person needs to have a certain readiness. And we talked about suffering before. The readiness means I've suffered enough. Okay, I'm ready to do I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to look at my ugly faces. I'm ready to look at my darkness. I'm ready to look at my fears. I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to stuff myself on and distract myself. So that kind of readiness is absolutely necessary for a true transformation to happen.
Mm-hmm. So if someone wanted to learn this technique, how would they do it?
Well, it's a self-healing version. So you will actually, the book will teach you how to identify those thought forms within yourself. And then you just listen to the recording where I'll be guiding you through where to go in the body and how to breathe and
is this out yet?
It's very, very close to being out.
Okay.
So, 2013 sometime it will be out.
Do you see anything happening in December 21st, 2012?
No, I don't think anything's going to happen. My sense is what's going to happen is probably going to come as a surprise sometime, maybe during 2013 or 14, something like that. But this is how we're going to, it's one way that existence is so clever. It's so beautiful in a sense that, something's going to happen. So people sense it, people feel it. The Mayans give a calendar date, but existence is very clever, just like a master. Existence works like a master. It will give you a very unexpected moment because it wants you to wake up. If you were expecting and your mind was expecting something, you cannot wake up. You're still in your mind. It has to come as a surprise.
Yeah. Now I want to switch on to a different track and talk about your past lives. And you said something interesting in the Buddha the gas pump interview. And you said that past lives come up when we have unhealed patterns, or it's mostly pattern based. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it's the part of looking in. It's the part of looking into the unconscious. So the unconscious carries all our past lives. And many of the patterns that we have not transformed in previous lifetimes continue into the next life. And that's the reason why we need to remember past lives, to see what we haven't learned, what we have missed, that we can actually learn now and transform. Because the moment we learn that, what we've learned is no longer necessary and it drops away. And that's how we expand our consciousness, by those lessons that we're learning. And it's interesting, one of the past lives that I remembered, I was in China, and you probably read that as a astrologer. And what was interesting, I was thinking I'm going to find the answer by studying the stars. and the beautiful thing was that the experience that I had, and I think for your listeners it might be interesting, so I'll tell the story.
Yeah.
I was a young man, and I was very, very focused. I'm going to find the answer to what is the truth. And it wasn't even in the jargon, it wasn't I'm going to find myself, my truth. It's like, what is the truth? Mm-hmm. I'm going to find the truth. And I'm going to find it in the stars. So I was studying the stars, and this was during the time where the Great China Wall was being built. And I'm in this beautiful place and studying the stars. Once in a while, I'll go down into the village to get what I need to get in. And I had this attitude that all these people are wasting their life. They're how ridiculous. They're doing all these mundane things, and I had this very sort of looking down attitude at
spiritual high tower.
Right.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. So, and of course, being a young, beautiful man, there's many available women who are interested, and I was not interested in a relationship. So, but one day, this woman came, this beautiful young girl came up to the observatory, brought me this lunch, and So we went out into nature, sitting on the mountain and having lunch. And in those 2 hours that I spent with her, it was absolute bliss, and my mind had completely stopped. There was
it's your
nothing.
first date ever.
Yeah, totally. and it was so full, so pleasant. It was so magnificent. And of course, with
How
no
old
mom,
were you?
really young. I think I was probably in early 30s. So in that moment of feeling that fullness and greatness of the what was all around me. And once she left, of course, I went back into my mind, back into my work, and I forgot all about it. And at the moment of death, we have this mechanism that happens if we're dying awake. Then we can see the whole life flash in front of our eyes. And I saw my whole life flashed in front of my eyes, and I saw that I wasted my entire life except those 2 hours that I spent with that girl on the mountain.
Gosh.
The only time I really lived fully.
That's a bit harsh.
Well, but that's the truth.
So aren't you going to say something like, it's all meant to be and all that? You're just saying like the whole life was wasted apart from those 2 hours.
Wasted, completely wasted. And recognition, it was wasted because I was trying to find the truth with my head, and the truth was right there when I was sitting in those 2 hours thinking nothing.
It's quite sobering. Well, what do you define by wasted?
When there is we do everything mechanically, no matter what we do, unconsciously, mechanically, it's all lost. Everything comes and goes. Alexander the Great, at the end of his life, said, I came empty-handed, I'm leaving empty-handed. So all his life, that he could have actually become a Buddha, he put his energy into conquering the world. He ended up conquering all, half the world, ended up causing a lot of death and heartache and pain, and he left with nothing. So anything that is to do with the ego, with the intellect, with ego in short, which is connected to the intellect, it's all a waste.
Well, do you think that there is another evolutionary path, which is so-called the left-handed path, the path of the ego?
Well, the ego needs to develop, as I say also in the book. It needs to develop before it could drop. You cannot drop it if it's not developed. So this is the catch-22 that you need to really understand. And the wounded ego, an ego that thinks itself as a victim, cannot come to a place of awakening. You need to come to a place of absolutely feeling that health and strength and thinking, I can conquer the world. I can lead my life the way I want. Nobody can tell me what to do. That's a healthy ego, but it's still the ego. But it's easier to see and let go of an ego like that than to let go of a wounded ego which feels itself being a victim. Because the healthy ego is more full. There's less holes and there's less energy leakage. You're more contained. So I can see with you, you're developing your healthy ego, so it's all good.
I have no idea what I'm doing, really. I mean, I think I have some clues some days, but other days I'm just trying to get by. Anyway.
You develop certain trust in your inner knowing, a certain trust. So you have an intelligence. You trust your intelligence. Your intelligence recognizes, it can discriminate. So that's how you develop that healthy ego.
But at a certain point, it needs to be let go?
Well, till one day, you have to come to a point where you have to say, today is a good day to die. And who is saying that? It's the ego, because the ego is always afraid to die.
I look forward to the day.
Yes, that would be a day of celebration.
Mm.
So in other words, Kenneth, you have to come to a point where you have to say, okay, I'm letting go of all these books. I'm letting go of all the knowledge that I've learned. I'm letting go of everything. And I'm ready to just face the unknown. That's what death means, facing the unknown.
Do you think that's my choice or it's predestined?
Both. Both. When the cup is full, it becomes your choice.
It's interesting, huh? It feels as if my ego is sparring with you. And I can see that pattern now very clearly. It's this analyze, discriminate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you need, once in a while, just go and rock and roll. Drop everything, go dance, go celebrate, just have a good time. And I'm not saying party and go get drunk and go into oblivion. I'm saying just celebrate your life, just celebrate your being alive.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Thank you. Yeah. Mada, there's so much we can go on, but I don't want to make this a 3-hour interview. I like to keep it within a constraint and maybe revisit. And I like to do that, actually, if you're up for it. And we can see whatever responses come up and maybe tailor our next interview based on that.
Of course, yes. And if people have questions, we can answer those next time.
Any kind of last things you'd like to mention for this session?
Well, I think that the note that we finished with celebration, I think that's a good note to finish with. And celebration is absolutely necessary. And people can say, well, how can I celebrate? I have all these problems and all this pain. You can still do that. You can celebrate. You can say, okay, I have the pain, but I'm going to celebrate the pain and see what it's going to teach me, what this struggle is going to teach me. And just drop the books once in a while. And this is another reason why you can probably benefit from active meditations, because they have an element of dance, they have an element of celebration as well. So maybe that would be a one good thing for you to do. And I don't know if you have tried the no-yes meditation. Maybe
not yet. I will do. I just downloaded it. I haven't had time to look at it.
Good, because that would give you that little element of dancing and celebrating also.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, love. Namaste.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Kenneth, here on Global Renaissance, our new YouTube channel. And with me, I have Eliza Mada Dalian. She is the author of In Search of the Miraculous, which is a great book about healing. You know, I mean, there are many themes in this book, but I would summarize it as it being a book about healing. Mada is a teacher. She is a healer, and she currently lives in Canada. So, Mada, welcome.
Thank you, Kenneth. Happy to be on your show.
Mada, maybe let's just start with you. And you know, it's a very long story that you've been through, and I certainly appreciate that you've been through a lot in your life. I think it takes one to know one, and the great thing about being a teacher who's been through a lot of, I would say, suffering is that you have a tremendous ability to empathize. Now, do you want to just tell us a little bit about your life? before you started teaching, I guess?
Well, you mentioned the word suffering, and there's two ways to look at suffering. One way to look at suffering is with the attitude, which I call a wounded ego, which says I'm a victim and nobody loves me and poor me and look at me, I'm suffering. Another way to look at suffering is to look with an attitude, these things are happening to me, and why are they happening? What are my lessons in whatever is happening? So those attitudes are very, very fundamental in how much we can progress and evolve on our journey. With the second type of attitude, we can move heaps and very fast, and we can learn a lot. Fortunately, my attitude has always been to look at suffering as, what are my lessons? Why am I in this situation? What can I learn? And as a result, you mentioned the word empathy. Empathy arises as a result of suffering in a way, because once you've gone through certain things, you understand other people's suffering. And also you understand how you can help them. In my personal life,
who am I? So what is your answer?
The answer about the who am I question, well, that's a very big question and the most important. And of course, in itself, the question creates a lot of I hesitate to call the word suffering, but it does create a lot of suffering in a sense, because the cause of our suffering is because we don't know who we are. And that's why we suffer. And then to find who I am is another process of an uphill battle, because you're working with all the belief systems that you think you are. And therefore it becomes sometimes maddening. And I remember when I was looking at that question again as an adult, and of course with oops, you disappeared. Okay, and came back now again. Okay, as an adult, I realized that the maddening part about the question is the mind itself, because you're trying to find the answer with the mind, and the mind itself is the problem. And therefore it becomes confusing, it becomes hard. I can say that I have, because life is not only suffering, there's always also very many blessings in life as well. And my focus has always been on the blessings that I've received, and the blessings have been very profound, in a way that I started my life with a blessing in a gift that I received through my grandparents, and an awareness that life actually is here to teach me about myself, for me to learn who I am. And of course, that happened through witnessing my grandfather's death at an early age of 5, and asking the question, who am I? So that's a tremendous gift for a child to have, to start asking those questions early on in life.
Sorry, why that's a bit of a jump for me. Why, how did witnessing your grandfather's dying translate to having this question, who am I?
The awareness of my own mortality. And once I realized that I will be dying as well, and the world will continue just as it's continuing after his death, it brought me, just suddenly the question arose, then who am I? What am I doing here? Where do I come from? What's my purpose here? We're very, when we have that contrast in life, where there's a dramatic, life and death situation, this is where we learn the most. And I remember Osho saying that Buddha used to send his disciples to watch people die and being brought to the burning ghats. He would send them for 3 months to just watch people dying. And he himself, whenever he would hear as a young child somebody's dying, he would rush to the side of the person who is dying to learn. And I've learned tremendously with just watching somebody's death process. And I've witnessed several people as well on their death, in their death process. With my grandfather, for example, he struggled. He wasn't accepting it, and he was basically very much identified with the pain and just wanted to end it all. So I don't think he really learned what he needed to learn through his process of death.
Okay, so we were talking about this question,